Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
And actually, it's time for Purple Access. Judd Zolgad, Declan Goff, Chip Scoggins, as we rotate Tyler Forness of VikingsWire.com, and Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist, every other week. And Chipper, we just got back from 2 days of watching minicamp. We got back from 2 days of trying to glean as much information as possible before the Vikings now go on their summer vacation, before they reconvene for training camp. So I'm going to ask you this off the top. After 2 days of watching guys technically not supposed to hit, but have, you know, what amounts to full off-season practices, what stood out to you from those sessions?
I think I would say, to me, the headline throughout minicamp and OTAs was just how different the defense looks in terms schematically, alignments, just all the creative things that Brian Flores wants to bring. But as I say, we were talking about it yesterday, and I wrote about it for a column today, is like, it looks more creative, it looks more explosive, it looks more dynamic, but the talent level, they're thin on difference makers at defense right now. Offense, Cousins, Jefferson, Darisaw, TJ Hawkinson, they have difference makers over there. If you remove Danielle Hunter, and we can get in his situation, who would you say is a difference maker on defense now? I still think Harrison Smith can be. I think he was miscast last year. But other than that, a proven that right now, you can say this guy's a difference maker. Who's on the list?
Yeah, proven's the key word, because I think it's TBD. You hope
exactly.
You hope or you need Asamoah to emerge.
Asamoah to be one, yeah.
You hope or
Davenport
think that Davenport can, because I mean, he did have 9 sacks a couple years ago, but then a half sack last year. So yes, as far as proven difference makers, and I told you, because I was watching, I guess, what technically constitutes the outside linebackers doing drills during individuals yesterday. You look at that group right now, nobody scares you. So yeah, you're not wrong. That being said, the most important thing now is that some of those draft picks and young players, if they don't emerge here, it's a problem.
That's 100% right, Judd. They have to be right on those guys. I mean, because when they turned over this roster and got rid of the veterans who play a lot of snaps, just by definition, you're asking younger players to fill roles that they haven't, they've either been special teams guys or backups or, hardly used. Now you're going from, a limited number of snaps to being the regular guy. And some of them are going to be able to make that, and some of them are going to emerge and be what they thought. No one's going to sit here and say all of them are, but they need to hit on as many of those young guys, those draft picks as possible, particularly on defense. And that's to say, all we heard throughout this spring was, B Flow in his defense and how difficult it is. We heard Cousins talk about it again yesterday, and you could just tell the last 2 days there were times that Cousins looked confused and unsure, and he, had a couple picks and balls that got batted down, and he even talked about that this defense is different than others that he said. And so, like, when you come to practice, you're not scheming just to try to beat this defense. And so I think it opens itself up to making them look a little discombobulated at times.
Yep.
So I think the scheme, and I think Flores, I think what his coaching is going to probably elevate guys and help their development, but they're still young, John. There's still a lot of question marks on defense. I think the offense is going to be really good. I agree. You look at what they have, I think the offense is going to be, as I wrote today, the minimum expectation for that group should be top 10 scoring.
And this is why they needed, I'll just cite one player as an example. This is why they needed Donatel to incorporate Asamoah last year more often. And like Kendricks was clearly slowing down, but I mean, it finally took an act of God with like 4 games left for Asamoah to start to rotate with Kendricks. I think it was the regular season game against the Giants here. But I mean,
Yeah.
this is why you need to allow those young players to be brought along with not with, well, you're not going to play until you're completely, until you're a completed product. So like, I feel like that's probably, and Donatel's gone now, so it helps, but I feel like that's probably a lesson that they learned, because there shouldn't be the amount of guys now that they're going to have to throw into to the fire with no training in the future based on what they should be doing now.
Yeah. And O'Connell was basically publicly begging for it to see more Asamoah, see more Josh Metellus. Metellus is the one that really stood out to me in terms of being that rover type guy that you're seeing all over the place, safety, linebacker, hybrid, moving them. They clearly have plans for him, right? I mean, the latitude that they're giving him to move all over the place shows a level of trust. And it also jumps out that Lewis Cine is the clear number 4 safety on this roster right now.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't take what you will, but he's the clear number 4. I don't know what that says. I don't know if that's going to stay permanent, but throughout this spring, he did not get a lot of run with the first group.
Oh no. And what Metellus is doing now, which is impressive, is what I think we all expected Cine would be doing. But yet Cine is stuck at safety. Like he's
stuck
not,
at safety. Yeah.
He's not moving around. He's doing nothing. So it's basically he is the 4th safety, and we're talking base safeties here. We're not talking room to like be incorporated. He's coming off the broken leg. It seems like he's doing all of the work though. So I got to think, Chipper, that this is a little bit, unfortunately, of a repeat of last spring where he's just not up to the standard that they expect for a guy that they're going to get creative with.
How much do you think Judd is, I mean, this is the, 2 years, 2 systems, and a lot of missed time.
Yeah.
Is that an excuse or is that an explanation?
I think it's an excuse because Metellus is a 4th round pick himself.
Yeah.
From, a few years back, and he is clearly incorporated. And I mean, you know what? It might come down flat out to this. Lewis Cine might not be the player they thought, which is going to be a big mistake if he's not. Yeah. But I'm with you. You can't watch a practice there and realize how buried on the depth chart he is and not say, that's really interesting for a 1st round pick going into his 2nd year, who, yes, was hurt last year, but I believe before he got hurt in the first 4 weeks, Chipper had played 2 defensive snaps.
And along those same lines, I'm curious to see how this cornerback pecking order shakes out, because we're seeing some rookies, get a lot of run with the ones. Booth, Evans. I mean, how with their injury history, how's that going to factor in? So there's a lot to be sorted out, and O'Connell has mentioned it a couple of times. And he said the same thing last year. Is like the spring practices are for installation. The competitive part starts at training camp. I guess I buy that a little bit, but even when they're out there now, they're still competing for jobs. I think that the competition part is going to get dialed up real quick, real fast there at the start of training camp, and to find out kind of how they view these secondary guys, because there's options. I just don't know how how many good options there are and how many they trust yet.
I feel like what we saw the last 2 days, though, definitely is the signature of how they plan on starting training camp, which is important still.
Yeah. Yes.
And it appears that in the nickel package, which they're going to be in a ton, it appears outside Evans has a role 1 right now.
Yep. Yes.
We all know Byron Murphy Jr. inside does. But then it was interesting that on the first day, it was Andrew Booth Jr. outside. On the second day, it was Mekhi Blackman outside. Blackman is definitely the second on the depth chart inside behind Murphy. And as I told Phil and Declan on the PD show that we did yesterday, I think it's interesting that Brian Flores was in the room when Blackman was drafted. He was not in the room when Booth was drafted.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I guess Blackman part of his evaluation that he's an incredibly smart player. And that's not to say that Booth isn't, but that's just somebody was telling me about Blackman. And so he's able to, this defense looks pretty complicated when you just watch it. I don't know if it is, but when you watch it with your
I think it is
amateur eyes and the stuff that they're asking to do, it looks complicated. And this kid has picked it up. I say kid, this guy has picked it up pretty quickly, and he's enough to where in the mandatory minicamp he's getting first team reps. So that tells you how much he's able to process a lot of information quickly. So that's a competition that's going to be very interesting. Come training camp, because on offense, I think things are pretty well sorted out there. Right?
There's no real competition.
There's no road and defense. I think there's quite a bit. That's guys are they're going to have opportunities to earn bigger roles.
What would you do to go back to the top of the show regarding the Danielle Hunter situation?
Boy, this is it would keep me up at night. He is a premier edge rusher still. Yep. If you look at the analytics, I know it was a slow start last year adjusting to that, but those guys are not cheap. But I would have a real difficult time committing to a term that would take him into his mid-30s. Now,
oh yeah, agreed.
Every player, somebody's like, well, why don't you just, why don't they give him a shorter term? Well, the Vikings would love that, but the player doesn't want that. Any player going for a big contract is going to want as many years as possible to get that financial security, and so I'm sure he's no different. He wants to be paid like a premier edge rusher, and he wants, a long-term deal that's going to add more money to it. So, but would you give him a 5-year deal that took him to 34? Man, I don't know, Judd, with his injury history. Kwesi has tried to undo those contracts this whole offseason. That's not been what he's given the shorter ones, kind of the prove-it ones.
Yeah.
Was it Ian Rappaport that said that they're looking for a, quote, BandAid type deal with Danielle?
Yeah.
I'm sure he has no interest in that type of deal. So that's a long way to say I don't know what I would do. I would try to make a compromise in the middle somewhere if Hunter's camp will do it.
I would give him a very lucrative 3-year contract.
Yeah.
And but here's the important thing. So it sounds like because he's not young and also obviously missed all 2020 with a neck, which I'm sure scares teams, and then missed half of 2021 with a completely unrelated injury. My biggest thing would be this. This would be one guy, Chip, I would be willing to allow to hold out, because I'm not going to trade him for a 4th-round pick.
No.
I need him. And look, the guy has spent his career playing on bad contracts negotiated by his agent. I would allow him to hold out starting camp. And at some point in time, especially if the season starts and he's not being paid, he's going to say, let's get this done. Because he doesn't have a long career left, I don't think that would be a bad strategy, because the last thing that I would do is, like, if a team said, we'll give you a 4th-round pick, I'd be like, no, he's worth more to me than that. Yeah. I understand the reluctance to give up a 1st or 2nd-round pick, but I'm with you. When you look at the pass rush without him,
yes.
I feel like I would just allow him to think about it, sit there, not get paid. And because at the end of the day, the contract that they signed is their own fault.
Well, that's it.
That's not Vikings' fault.
That's the thing, Joe, because if you looked at their pass rush without Hunter, where's it going to come from?
Yeah, and
Patrick Jones. I mean, and this is and I know there's a segment of fans that probably say, trade him, rebuild, think about the future, and I get that to some degree. You don't want to have a 5-year, a bunch of huge contracts, 5 years long, but this team still has, as I wrote today, a top 15 quarterback,
exactly.
The best wide receiver in the league, 2 really good tackles, a good tight end. They're going to have a top 10 scoring offense.
Yes.
Well, that alone is going to make you competitive in your division. Right. You can win the division. So you need to have, and I think the defense, because it allegedly can't be worse than it was last year. So I think you're going to see improvement. So it's not like they're not in a position where they're the Chicago Bears of last year, where just,
exactly.
play it out and get it. This is not that. This is not that. So And I'm always, nervous about giving up great players because I think Danielle still can be a great player. I think he is. It's just that those 2 injury years really throws, this thing in chaos because, right? He was on a historic trajectory until those injuries. And so I would work really hard and really long and take it, like you said, let him hold out to try to find a solution that does not involve trading him because you're not going to get the value that you think, I don't think anybody's going to give you 1. Could you get a 2 for him? But even then, I think you still can win now.
Well,
right?
That's their problem, right? Like
it is.
Like you just went through like this whole thing of, because I've seen this talked about and written, this whole premise of, well, if Hunter's gone now, you're rebuilding. No, you're not. You're still not. I would have done that at one time, but they didn't. Okay. So now if Hunter goes, it's going to hurt you a lot, but you're not rebuilding.
No, you're going to make, are you going to tell Justin Jefferson we're just going to waste a year of your career? Or Kirk Cousins? That offense is going to be good. And you had the best line. I told you I was going to steal it for my column. I didn't use it, but
oh my God,
they're going to have to outscore their I'm sorry, I should have played.
I thought you're going to use it.
Yeah, I know. What did you say? That they're going to have to outscore their problems.
Outscore their problems.
And I think that's totally true. But I feel a lot more comfortable saying that if you have Danielle Hunter there versus not Danielle Hunter, because I still think no Aaron Rodgers in this division. I know there's a lot of love for the Detroit Lions, but when you tell me you have the offensive pieces that they have, as knowing all the problems that they still have on defenses and the unknowns and question mark, I still think they should be competitive and right there in the mix to win their division.
And I think Brian Flores is going to do a very good job, but he has to be a miracle worker completely. And back to your point, I don't know who's going to get the consistent pressure. Now they will have, basically what's going to amount to, and we saw this past 2 days, loaded fronts. We're going to see a ton of pressure, but it would be nice to have that one guy who you can count on and who has to be accounted for. So Danielle Hunter in this defense is going to be a problem.
I think so.
I don't know that I can identify a problem other than scheme without him in this defense.
Well, and you looked at the way, there are times that you see 8, 9 guys just crowding the lines. Like, that looked pretty good with Danielle Hunter out there too,
Right, because you'd be concerned.
Yeah. And then, I just think it makes, it's not going to be the difference between they're not going to jump up to be a top 10 defense, I don't think. But again, where's the balance between how Hunter and his camp feel about where he is? Because it's all about the market, right? He sees what Joey Bosa and all these guys are getting, 20 plus million. He's at 4.9 million. That's a gigantic gap.
Yep.
So how do you get that more in line without having to go with a term that puts him in his mid-30s where you may look back and be like, man, we should have done that,
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing, are you a little bit surprised? Because I am, and I'm actually going to compliment him here. Kirk seems very comfortable going into the last year of his contract, and I didn't know if he would be. And I know that we've not seen a game yet, so this could completely change in September. But are you a little bit surprised that he seems so relaxed and comfortable going into his final year of his contract here for the first time since he joined the Vikings?
I guess I would say no, because I didn't think he would be a problem or disruption or let it, become, acrimonious. But Judd, he's organizing the Jersey Day. He's taking
at peace. Like he seems at peace is what I'm saying. Because you're right. He's never going to be a problem.
Because I just think he probably realizes that he's in a good situation, second year in the system. He's going to have a good year when you look at the pieces they have around him. So he's getting a contract, whether it's here or somewhere else. I don't think he's worried about the door is going to be closed on him in the NFL after this year. I think he realizes that, hey, how many times in his career has he bet on himself in this situation? And it's always worked out pretty good for him. So I think I think the fact that he's done this a number of times where he's kind of had a bet on himself, I think it's not something that he spends a whole lot of time worrying about, or it's not outwardly affecting the way he goes about his business.
That's a good point. Thanks, Chip Scoggins. We'll talk to you on Purple Access in a couple of weeks, buddy.
All right, brother. We'll see you, man.